Mary and I sold my interest of it to my sister. So my sister came.
The reporter was in there.
I'm back on it. My sister's 79 years old, and so, you know,
A week later.
it's been, it's just.
Yeah, we did that
you
for
know,
last
yeah.
Yes, and they're playing that weekend, so it's not that much fun.
Say, well, you know,
It's nothing fancy.
Mobile's looking at doing this.
And we're not gonna know what.
This might be some.
Then you can come back
The
to the
mayor
next board meeting
has
and get
decided.
it. It's on your.
Stop and draw. I have to call the, so we're eating at this restaurant that actually was small, like
The mayor
but it was like $200 in that people there. So I was like, no, you should go and they have a charger for hotel.
Was it
I didn't-
recorded? Was the meeting recorded?
We're slowly moving stuff down.
But, you know, I just, after I got off the phone with him, I thought, yep, there was my name. It was not good.
Recent sort of, these folks were all reading or something.
I never thought of that, you know.
The person who was reading the fact that all the minutes that were passed in the school led to this horrible article.
I hate to say it. So every week, I was just miserable. And the neighborhood was going to take a hand basket. And then I also, my dad, was a truck driver.
Well, and that
And all he
is,
done while I was retiring.
that's what I told the mayor.
Yeah. And he got sick. He went down and retired, but he was ill.
There was a conversation about the intersection.
I'm not doing
The
it.
road roundabout
I'm
was
living
put
in
out.
the
Oh, yeah, that's a horrible word.
That's-
too.
yeah.
No pun intended.
But,
And that was just,
that set them off down there. So I said, you
I
know,
saw a sign on the side of the road.
But there was a discussion of mobile.
I'm buying it.
They like
I like
it.
it.
Somebody.
I like driving that car, that's for sure.
And then we sold it.
and, you know, I said,
Kids left.
I think one of the commissioners mentioned your name
Yeah.
in conjunction with the intersection.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
some, is it a tip to the reporter, maybe it's wrong.
This is true.
But, just saying.
We usually take turns.
I remember that
We usually take turns.
what she heard
I
may
think it's
not
close to
have
everything I have on our drive.
been exactly how it was presented.
Record calendar 3 times.
Just so you know what you're doing.
One day he was in Perryville.
Occasionally, the guy that runs the place will knock on your door and
Yeah, I mean,
you
it was
know,
like
board
driving.
position.
I don't think there are any
No, no.
You can sit
tack
I'm representing that,
and I got on Tuesday.
that
Yeah, that'll be
constituency.
nice. We're ready for a break.
Nobody wants to hear from me, but,
Someone's going around our office, so I've been doing my job, plus somebody next to me. She did work from home for a couple of hours today, so that was nice.
yeah, I'm gonna plan on
We had
swinging
a
by at
traffic
10.
docket today,
See
so
who's
she
here or
went out
whatever.
sick, and it's just,
They do the 5 days and the 5 days.
Right.
Right, worse water.
Policy.
yeah.
Remember now.
Except she would be able
That's
to
the only
come
problem.
back tomorrow, because she still has.
I mean, there's a lot of people
She'll
volunteer.
probably work from home again.
Yeah.
I'm telling you,
Well,
man,
I need to.
And then somebody else does it.
I guess part of,
I watched it.
part of the
I watched
lunch
it make a
that
big old mistake across the city that people.
they.
Oh, yeah.
You're just walking around with like sand trash.
Hoping that since I just had it.
Yeah, that word came up.
I
Just
still-
make sure they do that. I was
But
like,
yeah, and then somebody else in the
But on
building
the flip side
came
of
down
that,
with it
with like
today, and it's
D
just,
and D
You know, the burden of diamonds.
but.
yes.
You know, where the people are around,
I think the first one was,
and then I get down here, wedges and stuff once in a while.
now they got
So,
I think those
I'm
are
not happy
becoming.
with this person.
Yeah,
Common
yeah, I'm
sense
of the
is
same.
far away, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I was encouraged.
And I understand why when the traffic engineers talk about, you know, reducing the point.
Well, it's too much.
There is a collision.
So we're on the doorstep, best time of year, and you gotta pay your dues before you get there. You gotta go
You're a
through
baby and
the
help
budget
her
talks and
daughter,
for
and
the.
Oh, I know, like I think if I was in the car with my father
And
and
so they looked
my
at her,
grandmother,
she's like,
she
okay,
doesn't
for my
have
10
a
days.
father.
She
It's
was like,
gonna
well,
be-
around the newborn. Steve was like,
He won't,
well, then
maybe no
somebody
one even make the turn, it doesn't feel
Okay,
right.
my
I
training's
think one of the
starting.
most impressive ones is you have a crew in the building.
It's almost like
Right.
she knows sometimes.
So she's like counting on her antibodies
Yeah,
too.
each other.
Yeah.
But
You just
she
don't
They're not
don't know.
agreed. You mentioned you
Well, you know, and that's what I love about that. I mean, and that's the way it should be. You know, this is a democracy here. Whatever the board decides, whatever you like it, if they vote for that, we need to support that. We don't need to. And I haven't had that with bad mouthing and stuff like that. Should never be.
Well,
We didn't have we got to a point
I can fill this up with some
in the mid
ideas here.
2010s where disagree, that means you have to hate each other.
Yeah, there's no.
We got you.
You have to hate each other, you gotta kill each other.
Save you some time.
An hour and 50 minutes.
I used to watch that.
they feel like it was more.
Don't tempt me.
Board members like to.
I've heard those stories.
Sure.
I've heard those stories.
I don't know.
You guys want to get started?
I find my P's and Q's because old Ashley.
Yeah, I don't-
Hell of a left.
I don't really
This may
have
be
a-
our- This may be our group.
Sure. I don't have a presentation or anything. I'm just here to listen. Anybody's got thoughts or
I got a bag down in my basement.
There's a sign-in sheet up on the table, there is information, there are posters up on the wall that have existing uses and roads, which is a major part of any comprehensive plan. So if you want to sign in, grab a map.
Yeah, I've got small printouts that you can write all over and you don't have to put your name on it, you can just give it to me. With any ideas that you've got, I've got, it's a really simple kind of questionnaire. It's just 5 questions. There will be surveys in the future that get very specific about, safety, parks and rec, water, wastewater, all, highways, streets. We'll get real specific with all of that. But right now, I just kind of like to be really general with the survey right now. And I don't really want to lead people. I just kind of want to see, if we had 20 people come into these meetings, is there a topic that seems to show up without me really pushing it? I keep seeing, well, this is a strength, or this is a weakness, or is it the same topic that half the people say this is a good opportunity, and half the people say, oh, this is a threat to the community, and then that tells me, all right, we got to kind of figure out which one this is. So it's real basic. You can fill out any. You don't have to fill the whole thing out. I think a lot of the time it's easier to say, this is what's wrong. And you don't have to tell me what's right. If you can't think of anything, it's okay. We'll get there. This is the table of contents from the existing plan, which it looks like we may have 2 copies of it here. So if you want to look through it, if you got any questions. But my business cards are up here. But mainly I'm here to listen. I don't have a presentation for anything. I'm just here to get your feedback and your input.
So you guys can come sit up here and we can all
I
talk.
probably will, just to fill this out.
I just need an invitation, Dave.
Invitation supplied.
Now that we know there's not 40 people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys have been through plenty of these, but this is the usual turnout.
Sign sheet here.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
Got you.
I'll play the role of PM today.
No, you won't.
Don't insult anybody's age, or we won't insult your age. How's that?
That's right. I thought you were going to say, don't insult Pam, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
Do you have a form for Thursday? Do you know how to get the city email?
As far as I know,
Okay,
more to come.
okay.
So, is he able to dial in if possible?
Yeah, I just need to change the reservation, which I think I can do. I could change it by 15 minutes and we'd probably be fine. Or he can walk away and
I
I'll
know
just...
2 that won't be there.
Okay. I'll just go
I-
ahead and change it.
Okay.
Or he can walk out and,
Yeah, I
make a
mean-
phone call. That's okay. It doesn't have to be by.
I'll know more tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll text you.
He had a lot going on this week, so it kind of fell off his radar, so I thought I'd just check with you.
By my.
You were talking about giving me a holler this weekend.
Yeah, this weekend got a little messy.
Same here, but I
Yeah.
just wanted you to know. Yeah.
Did you get a sign up on Sunday? Did that work out?
Oh, yeah,
Wednesday.
and he told me to leave it.
Great. That makes me very happy.
There's not a line of people to join on Zoom either, unfortunately.
Would you just hold the questionnaire up to the camera or tell us to email your thoughts?
We could do that. Or we could email it to them.
They can just give it verbally. We'll read the question.
Takes the point of trying to remain anonymous on your answers away.
Yeah, good point.
Because I'm about to go off on this sheet. No, I'm just kidding.
So you have a blue ink.
Want some extra-
Mike does too. Don't compare him.
You're not copying off everybody. It's not that kind of test.
Why did I show up again?
To share the opinions of your constituents.
See, what was the last 50 Facebook posts on? Mics are on, Ashley.
FYI.
The entire county is watching, I'm sure.
Did Josh help you with the land use piece?
Yeah, Jeremy, Josh, Nathan, and I kind of, the first day we broke up 2 cars. Paired up in
How many times did you guys get pulled over?
Well, pulled over by law enforcement, 0. Pulled over by residents, I don't know, there were quite a few times where, of course, we'd be pulled over on the side of the road, making notes and updating, and people come up and stop, and,
What you doing?
yeah, what you doing? There was actually quite a bit of, I saw you drive by my house 2 or 3 times on my Ring camera, what you guys up
Oh, it's the new neighborhood watch,
Yeah.
right?
People looking out for each other.
to? I can't say much, I just put Ring cameras up at my house.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so we had to explain what we were doing more to just interested or concerned residents.
You were not porch pirates.
We were not,
I thought you pull on an ottoman over there or something, maybe.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'll just pull like these chairs around. Now I feel sorry for the people that had to sit for 2 hours at our last meeting out here in these chairs. These are not comfortable.
There are those folding chairs.
Oh, those are worse, yeah.
Yeah.
Metal folding chairs.
I did hear a complaint from somebody in the front row as soon as people went out.
We finally ran out of chairs, so that's your option. Should've got here earlier.
Right, exactly, exactly.
New chairs are in the budget.
Yes.
Yeah, when's Steve gonna come with our prototypes for the committee? Chair prototypes.
Yeah, right.
Well, I've already looked at the chairs and picked them out.
Oh, good. That's not going to
You don't get
committee?
input on that.
Man, that's the only reason I joined.
Spikes and electrified,
I mean,
Have they been ordered yet?
Real
Because I think
thin,
the one I got at work is
real
actually a
bare.
reclining
You think
computer
this is
chair.
bad, and the other ones are gonna have like nothing.
you wanna keep those meetings short.
Yes,
That's
I
what
do.
you're trying to do.
You guys will be in and out.
Like
It's
the
like
booths
Lori.
at McDonald's. Back in the day, I haven't been in McDonald's in years, but I'm guessing they don't have the same uncomfortable booths.
Formed
Do
plastic,
they?
like the school chairs, remember those?
Oh,
Should have kept those bowling,
I heard a
those
story
bowling
that-
benches that were down in the basement. Should have kept those and made chairs out of them.
I heard a story that the backs of the benches at McDonald's made great sleds.
Oh,
No
just a
comment.
story.
No comment.
Like when they did the most recent remodel?
No, I'm
Those?
talking
Oh.
maybe back in the 80s or 90s.
Oh, okay.
There's no Kodak Insta-film picture of you and Adam, like,
Thank God.
doing, okay? Not an admission of guilt. Okay.
It's just a story.
There's a lot of stories from that place.
Abby or Dave, are you guys gonna make the annual dinner?
I
Or
don't
mayor?
know. Yeah, I don't know that.
When is that?
September 20
Oh,
something.
you do have somebody.
Thank you.
September 21st. No, it's not.
I know, it's 20.
27.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, that's Charles.
Yep.
That's way too much riding.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. To answer your question a little later, because after the fact.
So does anybody have anything that they'd like to publicly comment on?
You know, one thing I hear, and I wrote it down here, is I hear the most. I've heard this and talked to several people about it. You know, we have a beautiful levee that has disconnected us from the river. And here we are, a river town, and we're totally disconnected from it because of a levee.
Right.
You know, and river access, and people ask, well, where do you go? And if you go up to the ferry landing, I hate even sending people up there, you know, because it's tough to navigate.
Right.
You can, and a lot of people do, and there's just not a lot of options to see the river, you know, so.
Were you on Facebook earlier?
No. Is it?
There's a conversation about, I guess somebody spotted the Viking cruise line.
Oh, yeah.
Up north, and
Yeah.
somebody routed it and knows that it like was in Chester, or has a
Yeah.
Chester stop, and they're like, why doesn't it stop here? And we just don't have the infrastructure.
Right. Well,
For it to
Chester,
stop
see,
here.
I went over there, two or 3 years ago to see the boat, you know, because they were having a bus tour, and I went over there with Sandra and their facility, it's a beautiful facility for that big boat to get in, concrete ramp all the way down to the river where they can just tie off water, so they can take on water, not so much fuel, they can get fuel midstream anywhere, but get water and stuff, so,
Yeah.
loading and unloading, so.
Yeah, and that spurred into a conversation of wanting to have, I guess what the marina used to be, you know, having a place to drive their boats down, gas up, and
I've worked on the river a lot of years, and that marina is not suited
No.
to put a big boat, to bring a boat. I don't care
No.
if the river's way up, it's just not suited
No.
it's not, it wasn't built for that.
No.
I think it was, you know, and I wasn't here when it was built, but they had gambling on their mind, you know, but it wasn't built for boats, not that kind of boat traffic. That's a big boat, you know. So, but it is possible to do something, but to get access to the river, and there's some things in the work with Fish and Wildlife. I think there'll be some opportunities. You have to work to get there, but you know, it's one of the things. And that could add, it adds to your community, man, so. Then the other big thing is infrastructure for me. It's just, something's got to be done sooner, rather sooner than later. You know, we have made some progress, but there's somebody's gonna really
Talking
have a.
specifically about roads, or are you talking?
I'm talking about, yeah, a lot of stuff underground too, sewers and, you know, old sewer lines and stuff. So we've had some improvements, but, you know, so. And our roads, roads, you can throw that in there too. We've got a lot of work, but.
I mean, roads are the most obvious because.
Yeah, people are on them, but.
I wonder-
Stormwater, you know, that's a
Yeah.
big issue. Stormwater is one of the most critical points to our roads. The roads are roads because our stormwater goes down the road. Don't go in.
Yeah, right.
Right.
That's a problem.
That's our collection system.
I wonder how much opportunity we lose if we could incorporate it into a plan. You're repaving, or you're gonna lay some kind of water plant pipe or whatever. Could we get with the utility, like the, you know, aerial cable, aerial telephone, aerial cable TV and electric? You know, how many opportunities do we miss to bury that plant? You know, I know it's at a cost.
There's no microphone on, is there, Charles?
No, they're on.
Oh, they are, okay, good.
Oh,
I just was wondering if I could get a copy of these so I could scan them in.
Oh, there you go. Thanks.
Take an extra so you can fill it out.
Well, I'll still have the same one, so.
Signage.
yeah. But hopefully, at some point, we capitalize on opportunity to get utility in the ground and not make it vulnerable to weather events and outages and whatever.
I think that in that case, it comes down to the cost and who's responsible for that cost.
Yeah, it's a tall order and very expensive, but maybe there's a grant available here and there, or, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, those are few and far between. If they try to work on the electric system, there's just not money out there for that kind of, if it's existing, unless it's been damaged in some way. That's
Yeah.
the only way to get it to move.
Yeah, like I said, tall order, but even look downtown, when you go downtown, look how much cleaner that skyscape, if you will, how much better would that look?
Streetscape?
Yeah, streetscape, if you didn't have RG6 cable TV, cables building to building, whatever, so.
You know, when I was reviewing this plan, and it's been a while because it was when we first met, I don't even remember when was that, it's been a couple of months,
As,
the committee.
oh yeah, probably March, right?
Yeah, so prior to that meeting, I had been reviewing it, and there was some information about the Public Works and how that is not a good location. Have we ever, I mean, is that something you guys are gonna look into again?
We'll be getting information.
Yeah,
as
yeah,
we talk.
absolutely.
I meant to ask Steve if he had an opinion about Public Works. I think it really indicated it should be on the other end of town, or just on the other side of the railroad tracks, for
In
a couple
particular,
of
the street
reasons.
shed?
Yeah, yeah. So I was just curious if that was, I guess I didn't really understand why, except it mentioned for access.
So we want to put in another, we've talked about putting in another maintenance shed, but that's water sewer maintenance, not
Yeah.
street and parks. So they need something larger than what's down on Main Street at this point.
Sure.
So looking for a spot, is you look at your open land, well, the open land we've got is on the south side of town. But trying to find a reasonable price, vacant piece is difficult because everything's pretty much for sale at a commercial price. And
Right.
we just don't know if we want to pay a commercial price.
But you said that would just be for water sewer.
That's what we've talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not room down where they are now
No,
to expand.
no, that's the problem.
Okay.
No,
So
they-
where all those pipes are now, that are just laying there in storage, is
Right.
that not city
That's-
property?
That's ours, but you're divided by the railroad.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that would make
So you
sense.
don't have
You can't
cross
go
access,
out.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So the idea is that we probably need 2 acres somewhere flat that we can put in a new maintenance shed. And if, you know, the city wants to consider 4 acres, say, and then put all of your public works together, you could do that. But you probably would need that much acreage to put in a large enough facility for all of the, all the equipment that we have.
Right.
So if you do that, then you can sell off, what, 2, 3 buildings?
You can,
Or would you hold them?
you know, be aware about, if you sell everything off, then you end up needing it at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could pick and choose which one you think would be, the best to try to sell, and get the most for it. Which is what the fire department did. We'd love to have that storage now on Main Street, but fire department sold that building,
Yeah.
so they could afford the new one out on Pine.
But I'm not mad about that because it opens those buildings up for something prettier than storage,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the one building is used residentially, I think, for the most part, or the personal storage, but Belle's been able to go in there, or the restaurant before and things.
Right, right.
What do you think, Mike?
Approved. Let's do it. Let's do it all.
How long have you lived in the city?
I'm new, only about 25 years.
Is that all?
Yeah.
Pretty
New-
good.
New enough to where if you walk around the wrong place, you still get asked the question like, who do you belong to? I don't. I'm a newbie.
So you just give your wife's name,
Yeah,
maiden
yeah,
name.
yeah. It does help to have,
That's what they're asking for.
it does help to have a name holstered up and ready to pull out quickly.
I've always heard that about this town, but I've never ever experienced that where it was, I was always told that there's just a couple families that kind of run this town, but what is that?
Every time I go in to vote, the same guy asks me every year, who do you belong to?
Well, you got one of those names, yeah, that Unrooster name. Yeah.
Which one do you belong to? Okay.
I know her uncle.
Yep. Everybody know at least one of my uncles.
Well, my gray hair mitigated that for the most part, so I don't have that anymore, but for a number of years I did. Who do you belong to?
And just so you know, this is kind of just a public meeting. You don't have to stay for the full 2 hours. If you felt obligated.
This is the first time I've ever seen the comprehensive plan in the 2.5 years I've been here.
Oh, you didn't get a copy? At one point, we all got copies.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess
got
it was before.
DVD too.
Yeah, I have it on a PDF,
Yeah.
because I think I gave Jen my hard copy.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of like looking over to see how it's like set up, and structured.
There's quite a few things in there that have been accomplished.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
was wondering
yeah.
about that. There has been.
I was looking for like a Parks and Recreation.
You know, one of the
Thing in here.
things under
There was-
parks is that the city owned the property that Pierre Marquette's on. That was in there,
Oh, yeah.
which I found
Some-
interesting. If you look at J17, Parks and Recreation,
Skipped right over.
We pulled it out of that book because you were looking at it.
yeah.
You ever got to say the alphabet just to figure out where it
Yep,
was?
oh yeah, all the time. All the
You're just
time.
a little embarrassed. H-I-J.
At least you weren't singing it out loud.
What was it, J?
16, 17, somewhere
I
around
did
there?
that once.
Ah.
Never let me forget about it.
And they call it Lions Club Mini Park.
So this plan will be, we're gonna have a new plan for the next 20 years. Okay.
Yep.
We say 20, but honestly, the city needs to look at it every 5 years. and
Yeah.
update it. We haven't done that.
Yeah, preferably it's planned for 20 years, but every 5 or so it comes back and gets,
Well, I've been here in 6, and we've never looked at it, so
and that's
pretty normal, I bet.
vast majority of our communities.
Yeah.
That do have a comp plan, they don't. It's usually 20, 25 years before they
Mhm.
come around to updating it, at which point it's really just a
Yeah.
plan.
I think it's a good tool, though, as you guys sit around the table, if and when you start talking about stormwater, street plan, insert whatever topic you want there, historic preservation, tourism, that you can reference it and say, we're not just winging it here.
Right.
It's in the comp plan.
Yeah.
Well, I think the good thing too is that we'll have these studies and secondary plans to help us put in, the street plan, the stormwater studies, to back up anything that we could or would put in here.
Right.
Yeah, like I said at the first meeting that we had, we're not gonna go out and reinvent something. If you guys have done a study and you know what you need to do with the sewer plant in the next 20 years, we're just, unless you see something
There's
as
some major improvements.
drastically
40 years.
changed.
From I
Who's gonna
heard
bring that
horror
in?
stories about it in the water.
Yeah, and there are cities, municipalities that
Well,
will,
even
they'll
the,
cite the section.
I think it's been-
Oh, yeah.
Even that street across from Triangle.
Y'all
Inn,
slacking.
Yeah.
and you-
We don't make the
all that
agendas.
charge they had that regraded, I mean, that was major.
Yeah,
That's major. That's major.
You want to see detailed citations
That was a
tonight?
long, that was, took a long time to get done.
Yep, had
That
all
wasn't where I was
trees
going.
and-
Oh, wow.
Just so you
That's where
know.
it went.
That was a big accomplishment.
But that was somebody's work 5, 6, 10 years ago. I mean, I was talking about that, and,
And I have to scratch
That-
out a lot of
that
this
really
on what the
needed
park
to-
oh my
offers
gosh, yeah.
currently.
So much safer.
Yes.
It is
So much safer now.
Well, and that's what you gotta do.
crazy.
Different intersections.
Just how much is
Yeah.
not in there just from whenever I graduated high school. That was 2008. We've lost tennis courts, we've lost swimming pool, and then everything's just deteriorated since. So it's crazy.
But those options are still available, just not in the park.
Something else
Yeah.
I didn't put on there, but thinking about that, as the school's growing, the traffic around the school, that's always that's just an issue. It's a tough issue.
9th Street that they're always talking about.
Not only 9th Street, 8th Street, and kids
Well,
leaving school.
There's a solution that's slowly presenting itself for
Mhm.
part of that problem.
Yeah,
So,
that's right.
New
So,
roadways.
yes, extending Maple.
And that's
Yeah.
been a topic of conversation in the past.
So that would involve multiple partnerships, but I think it would solve multiple problems.
Well, you could turn, that street behind the school into a one-way for part of the day, right? Is it one-way during the day?
The bridge drop
pickup?
off? Yeah,
Does it become one-way?
yeah, in the mornings.
Okay. But,
Where is Maple? It's the extension of Washington, really. Right, so Washington turns into maple.
Okay.
So the idea would be to bring it, and it's actually in that plan also, out to 60.
Oh, that's right, yeah, I remember that.
Glad you showed up, Mr. Mayor. Good stuff.
Hang in there. You'll be here for the whole 2 hours.
Well, you should leave in pairs for safety
No,
purposes.
no. That's one thing we got is to save time.
Yeah, well, all right.
See you all.
Thank you, sir.
See you, Mr.
Thank
Mayor.
you.
See you later.
The baseball fields are no longer the parks.
Yeah, that section is definitely out.
This current paragraph can go down to 1.
So you spoke earlier about future surveys. How would, what mechanism do you foresee using to get those out to people?
It'll mainly be
Paper
online.
Online.
So, yeah, we'll do it online. There'll be paper options. We'll have some, we'll send some copies for the city hall to have, probably send some over to the courthouse.
Yeah.
But largely it'll be online and just Facebook and whatever social the city uses. May look at including the link in the utility mailing if there's a.
I would hate to miss a demographic that may not use, although I'm old and gray and I know about Facebook, so I mean, that demographic's getting smaller and smaller. But
Yeah.
I still hate to miss the opportunity to solicit opinion from them.
Yeah, definitely. We'll put it in the paper. Like I said, we'll have hard copies so that if, we'll make it so that you don't have to be on Facebook to find out about the online survey if you want to do it that way. I mean, I'm not on Facebook much myself.
Yeah, same.
But we'll also have paper copies if you just don't even want to do the online version. That's fine too. You'll be able to come in and fill it out. So most of the responses I would expect will be online.
Yeah.
We'll have options for not.
Okay.
And those will be more lengthy. Try to keep each question itself, fairly simple so that they don't have to spend a lot of time on each one, but there winds up being quite a few topics, that you want to hit. And it may be broken up into multiple surveys as we kind of work through, so they're not just inundated, but there'll be a whole lot more questions asked than what's on this sheet when it comes to those surveys.
So just to add color for the recording, this is your first round, and then you'll solicit opinion via further surveys, and then you'll collate those responses into something meaningful to bring back to, how does that work?
So we're gonna collect, of course, whatever feedback we get here, and then we're gonna put out the surveys for the community at large. From that, what we're largely focused on right now is we're finishing up kind of the inventory and analysis of what exists. So we've done the land use, looking at the existing major street plan and the existing transportation network. What we're going to be focusing on next is going to be the vision, the goals, finding out, does the community want to grow? Do they want to stay the same size? Do they feel like the community needs to be safer? Do they want to see a growth in law enforcement, or is it okay where it is? Do we need more parks, or are we okay? Where do we need one on the north or the south side of town? Looking at what it is that the community wants or what they don't want. We don't want a Walmart in town, or we do want a Walmart in town. And so then from there, we'll bring that back to the committee, the citizens committee and the staff committee. We'll bring it back to the planning and zoning committee too. Because ultimately, it is really the planning and zoning committee's plan and the board of aldermen. It's the city's plan. Just because, you know, a dozen citizens participate and they say they want some amenity, doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually appropriate. You know, 12 people mentioned it. It doesn't mean it's going to get in the plan. But we're going to bring that back to the city and say, okay, here's the feedback we've gotten. We've looked at, you know, the existing plan and what's here now, and, you know, kind of synthesized it together into either this is a pretty clear direction from the community. What do you guys think? This seems to be divided. How does the city want to proceed with that? Ultimately, it's the city's plan, and the city's going to be, you know, the ones adopting it. So it needs to match what the current administration wants to go with. So it ultimately, the feedback comes back to the city's committees and aldermen and for that final input. And then we'll move from that kind of vision section into the actual implementation of, okay, we need to grow the wastewater plant. All right, some general actions and, you know, the financials for that, or, you know, a park's needed on the west side of town somewhere. Okay, we'll kind of look at maybe where does that fit. The mayor was talking about, you know, access to the river would be great. So that's something we'll take a look at. Is, you know, we're unlikely that we're going to be moving the levee, but how can we, what can we do? How can we work with that levee and still bring some feel of access or get direct access to the river? So we'll be looking at stuff like that.
In your experience, how common is it that you would work within in these constraints, meaning you would seek public opinion, ideas and whatnot? How often do you do that? What kind of opportunity do you see this as for the normal taxpayer to be able to give input that might affect change in some way?
Well, I mean, so the comprehensive plan is, like we said, it's a 20-year plan. And when you look at the copy here, or just even the table of contents, I mean, it really is comprehensive. It covers pretty much everything in the city, the physical and the administrative side of it. So this is the opportunity, if somebody has an idea for the community, whatever it is, this is a really good time for them to voice that opinion. Because even if it didn't make it into the plan, it's certainly not going to get nearly as much attention if it comes 5 years from now when we're 5 years into the plan. It's a lot easier to take these ideas now and look at them, bounce them around. I mean, a lot can happen in 20 years, and so there's...
I've lived a number of places, a pretty good number of places, and I've never had access to this kind of process before. Meaning, as a taxpayer, I can come sit in a meeting and pitch an idea, and it can be at least documented and recorded, if not fully considered and implemented. I've never had that opportunity before. I think this is a great opportunity.
The example that I use a lot, because I think it kind of highlights how the whole comprehensive planning framework can work, and it's a real world example. When we did the Perryville comprehensive plan back in 2011, when we got the survey results back, everybody wanted walking and biking trails and hiking opportunities. And so there's like a 2-page section in the plan about a trail system in the city. And it was very rough. We just kind of looked at the couple of creeks that are in Perryville? You know, where could you follow right-of-way that exists and connect some of the amenities in town? But it was, you know, it was a pretty big network of ambitious network of greenway, because it's a 20-year plan. So, you know, we're not just going to say, well, extend this sidewalk here and extend that sidewalk, that's good enough. I mean, we're talking 20 years, so let's look big picture. Once that plan was done, that idea continued to gain traction among the aldermen and out in the community, and then the city came back and said, okay, we want a plan done for this Greenway Master Plan. But it all started from the citizens giving their input that this is an amenity that we would like to see, and so then it was in the comp plan as a small element. Then it grew into its own full plan, and the city's on like phase 3 now of implementing chunks of that greenway. And it all, there's so much that interconnects, because the city has used MoDOT grant funds for their greenway projects. But one of the things that those applications ask for is this project documented in a plan? And a lot of the time, communities have to say no, or they
Piecemeal.
they type something up real quick,
Yeah.
you know, there should
Yeah.
be a sidewalk from here to here, and they
Yeah.
stick it in something, and, you know, then the scoring committee, you know, the next thing is, you know, attach that plan, and you know, we're looking through, and it's like, yeah, this is not really in your
Yeah.
plan. I mean, you stuck it, literally just stuck it in there.
Right.
But the ability to say, yes, it's in a plan, we're not just, oh, free money, grab it.
Yeah.
But we've given this thought, the community's bought into it, we've had public input opportunities for it. There's a lot of advantages that go into the comp plan process that, you know, frankly, I don't think the city would have really, Perryville would have looked at as extensive a network as they wound up looking at if they had just kind of been thinking, you know, the next couple of years.
Yeah, comprehensive.
Right. So when you kind of pull back, there's some of it that, you know, it's a little nebulous, because you're talking 20 years, you can't nail all this stuff down. But I guess, you know, some people just, that's not typically the way they think of things, you know, in the big, long-term kind of big
Right.
picture stuff. But there is advantage in looking at things like that, because it kind of lets you be a little bit more creative with some of your ideas, because you're not looking at, well, what can we afford in the next 3 years? Well, let's not worry about that. What do we want in
Right.
the next 20? And there's a lot of opinions out there. And
I think I'm most struck by that, the idea that in any number of houses right now, people are around a dinner table and they might have a wish list of things that they wish they could do and not travel 30 minutes in any direction to do or whatever. And this is your opportunity to maybe see some of that stuff happen.
And there's, you know, if there needs to be more retail shopping, you know, the city's not going to go out, buy a building and start a store. You know, the city's not in the business of retail sales. But if that's what the community wants, then there are things that the city can do to help entice that to come in. But,
Right.
you know, is that what the community wants? And if it is, we need to know that, and it needs to be a part of the plan so that you can work towards that. If it's not what the community wants, then we need to know that, so that we're not using resources to try to attract something that the community doesn't even want.
Yeah.
Besides the survey that will come out at some point, is there a document that the alderpersons could use, like they're talking with someone at the coffee shop, I mean, So there doesn't have to be a document, it could just be questions off the top of your head, but I didn't know.
You know, we don't really have anything like that right now, but that is probably a good idea. We're going through this process right now also with the city of Deloge. And, you know, most people have never looked at their own city's comprehensive plan. A lot of people don't even know it exists. I mean, it's just not a common thing. You know, for me, I know what a comp plan is. I'm used to working with them, but most people, it doesn't mean anything to them. They may know that the city has one because they've heard it referred to, but they don't actually know what it is. And then, you know, we see the same thing in Deloge right now, working with them. So, yeah, we'll look at
I think
maybe kind of
if you put something online, if you had like business cards to hand out, that'd be the best way to, you know, get people connected. Because then you're not having to try to carry around paperwork. Let me show you what's on page 6. And I think that goes with the survey that you're talking about.
Yeah, the survey is kind of where, you know, we know what we need for the comprehensive plan. We just kind of have to present that need in a way that the general public is willing to interact with. And I don't want to say that we have to, like, we're not simplifying it really, but we're kind of distilling it down to, you know, the main elements, just to make it easier for the general public to interact with it. And then from that survey, we can start to see, okay, here's the trend, here's where the common ground is, and we can work from that.
Is it worth pursuing something like, I'm gonna go old fashioned, you know, like a postcard with a QR code on it, and send it out to those mailing routes that obviously fall within the city limits, the majority?
Yeah, we've done that with the QR codes, and that way you get because the survey, the better the participation, I mean, y'all know this, the better participation you get in a survey, the better the results are. And we do typically see, you know, this is kind of the typical turnout for a public meeting like this, but the input from a survey, especially nowadays where you can just do it on your phone pretty simply, that's typically where we get most of the public input. And you know, like I said, the utility mailings or
Can you put a QR code on the water bill?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because we don't have, it has to be typed in.
Okay.
but you know, we can make the address to the survey you know, it's not just a bunch of random characters. It'll be, you know, St. Gen dash comp plan or something like that. So they can type it in. Maybe getting the school to send something out with the students as well. You can tap into that demographic as well. And even, you know, one of the questions we always ask on these surveys, because I don't like to assume things, one of the first questions is, do you live in the city of St. Genevieve? Do you live in the county, or are you outside of the county? And if they're taking the time to fill out a survey about St. Gen, you know, in my opinion, let's hear what they have to say. We just need to know, are they in the city as a, you know, tax-paying constituent, or are they in the county, or are they out of the county? But we still want to know, you know, if people outside of the city say, oh, I wish there was more shopping in town, okay, well, if the residents seem to think that that's a good idea, and even the people outside seem to think it's a good idea, well, that kind of points to, you know, how do we start marketing this and helping developers understand that, you know, of course, they're looking outside of city limits themselves, but how do we, you know, there could be success here because we're not just talking about, what is it, 3,000 people in the city, but we've got interest in this from, you know, people from Perry County who say, well, I'd like to come up and, you know, shop in St. John more, you know, but there's, so, I always, not that we're gonna send a mailing out to Perry County, but, you know,
If
if
they
we
work
do.
in town, that may be of interest to someone.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, I know a couple business owners who live in St. Francis County,
Sure.
but own businesses here, and they'd probably be very interested.
Yeah.
So Drew, is it kind of safe to say that, I mean, I know we've had some changes, but the contents will probably, this table of contents will most likely stay basically the same.
Yeah,
It's just
very
the content is more, the content of each of these areas, as far as the plan goes, is more driven by survey results and the committee work and whatever else we're doing. Okay. So you probably, for most of your cities that are similar in our size, this looks the same,
Yeah,
close to the same
it's very
format.
similar. You know, the city of St. John's gonna have a bigger tourism section than, say, Deloge will. And
Sure.
you always kind of factor that in to
Yeah.
some extent, but St. John is, in our 7 counties, by far one of the more tourist, maybe not oriented, but you have a very large presence of tourism attractions, and so it's different for each community, but yeah, I mean, comp plans are largely the same. I mean, you go look at any community's comp plan, you're gonna see all these same elements. They may rearrange them a little bit, but it's very similar.
So you've mentioned retail a few times, and I know I've tried to keep my opinions to myself, but I do have people who come to me. I didn't know if any of you, has anyone reached out to you, because that has come up in conversation with some people that are on the steering committee and people who have come and asked, why isn't there a insert whatever?
I've heard that for years. I've heard that.
And I don't mean, by that, I don't mean Walmart. I mean, why isn't there a office supply store? Why isn't there a clothing store? Why isn't there a?
Right.
I think we had those needs like somewhat basically met when Alco was in town, because it had a little bit of everything. But like one thing I hear often, just like with my family talking, is there's like nowhere to go to get like a plain white t-shirt.
Yeah.
Or
I hear shoes a lot.
socks. I think
Yeah.
Dollar General was carrying a few things. But just your basic clothes you have to go out of town or order online for. So just things like that. I don't even remember how long Alco was here in town, a few years.
5-6 years maybe.
But I think a lot of people viewed their prices as high, but the convenience of being able to get something like what they were offering in town.
I'm sure it's due to some connections, but I hear about school supplies a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So there's always that. And, you know, we do have Dollar General, Dollar Tree. Tractor Supply has some clothing and shoes, but not a really large selection.
Yeah, if you're trying to back to school shop locally, you're a little limited.
Well, the risk is that post-pandemic, the major competitor to anybody we've mentioned would be Amazon. You know, we're now in the post-pandemic environment where, hopefully but hopefully we get to a point where it's normal at some point, but it's so much easier to shop Amazon. You know, so the future retailers are gonna have to compete with that, and hopefully they can do that.
And I think so many people have gotten used to Amazon, or I know people who go out of town every single weekend to shop. And they get
Yeah.
used to that, and
Yeah.
it would be hard to compete with that.
Yeah.
I think as far as like of course back to school is only one season of the year, but there's so many things that the kids are doing throughout the year that I shouldn't say require, but lead the parent to go like make a late night trip to Walmart or wherever to get a basic white tee that they can tie dye or write on, or just even the late night hours, or you know, kids are waiting till 7 o'clock to tell their parent that they have a homework assignment, right? And so there's last minute trips out of town to a store that's open later than 8 p.m. or things like that. even know what time some of the stores close anymore.
Yeah.
Because some of them changed their hours during the pandemic, but just going to get poster board and stuff, which you can get that kind of stuff in town, at Dollar Tree and Dollar General, and Country Mart I think has it, but just little projects and stuff like that, it's like you're headed out of town. So.
We've talked about housing a lot over the past year or two, and obviously there are some things that are in the works, but do you guys hear, I mean, I know we talk single-family housing, but are you hearing about senior housing, low-income housing, apartments?
The thing I'm hearing right now is, I know several people who are looking for apartments, and they're contacting landlords, and the landlords are saying, I'm gonna have one, but I'm turning it into an Airbnb.
Oh, wow.
And I feel like that I've heard a couple of times, and that is concerning to me, because it's we're already in a crunch. And if somebody wants to live here, move here, I mean, one person's a woman who just opened a new business, and she wants to live downtown close to the new business. And I realize that's a pretty confined area, and it's hard for housing, but there's a couple places that she knows are coming up, and it's going to be an Airbnb.
A lot of the Airbnbs are taking over, which is good in some ways, I mean, but when we're so strapped on the housing shortage and things like that, it's just, and then how much is that taking away from the established hotels and being, bed and breakfast and stuff that we have in town that, go through the process of getting business license and things like that,
Well, I hear low income availability, and I don't know if it's a lack of competition in that market or something drives, something probably needs to drive quality and opportunities for a low income family to occupy a decent place could be better here. And I hear that specifically. So.
The big thing that I hear about isn't so much senior housing from like an apartment. I think we do need that. We just need all types of housing. But one thing that I've heard so much of over the last couple of years from a lot of different avenues is the need for assisted living facility. Not necessarily nursing home care center, but somewhere where they can be independent but living, community with shared space and things like that. We have the arbors and Parkwood Meadows and whatnot, but their wait list is growing all the time, and it's so hard to get into, and to keep your family that needs those type of services close is really difficult. So if was any way to attract something like that, I think that would be, and I think that would free up some of the ranch homes that are in town, because I think people are kind of holding on to the ranch homes where they've kind of adjusted for accessibility for those family members, and they're just checking in often. But if they could go into a community, like that, where they have their own rooms and things, that could free some of that up.
Short-term rentals, and I am not advocating or proposing anything, this is just a conversation. Does the market set how many of those will be in the city, or is that a discussion to have, or
Short-term rentals as in like the Airbnbs, VRBOs, Verbo, whatever they pronounce it as.
Yeah. See, I think at some point we're going to be oversaturated with those.
Yeah.
And then if they don't get enough bookings, maybe they'll think about turning it in, back into a traditional rental. But I just wonder how long before that happens, because now with National Park and the museum and all kinds of things, we seem to be getting more people that have more things to do, more reason for an overnight stay. So I don't know. I think right now landlords are saying that there is money to be made, and maybe if we are oversaturated, they're not making as much money, maybe they'll think about taking some of them back to more traditional rentals.
Yeah.
But I don't know the answer to your question. Honestly.
I don't know that there is an answer. So.
And that's kind of why I've always, when you bring up some of the public hearings and stuff like that, it's me asking, is this a transferable special use permit and things like that, just to ensure that if they sell the property, the next person is reapplying, if that's what they wish to do. But also, like, I don't know if there was a way to, verify the tax, who's paying their taxes and stuff on those, because I know some of the sites don't collect. But if we're not careful, we'll become oversaturated, and that's been my fear. I think I've mentioned that to you before, and you as well. But I also don't want to get too strict on what people are able to do with their properties.
Right.
I think we'd have some competition if you had another hotel. That's been talked about, that there's not enough hotel space.
Yeah.
Because the microtel is booked. So that's where your Airbnbs then fulfill that space. It's easier for one individual to do that type of facility than to build a large motel.
Yeah.
So if it shows that we have a need, then that will fulfill that space if they can find the ground to build on. And then that might pull away from your Airbnbs, because then it is not profitable. There isn't that market out there that there is right now.
And I certainly don't have an issue if somebody wants to do an Airbnb. My concern is if we're going from long-term rentals to the Airbnb, that's making our housing shortage worse.
Yeah, we discussed your review that you did for the housing, for the IDC, on housing for the IDC, and just looking at how small amount of homes we have for sale that are available here and in Bluesdale. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Well, and that also the ones that are for sale, making sure they're adequate for actual family use. Like, if I were to sell my house, it's not going to benefit too many people because it's only a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. So if you're looking for, you really want those 3-bedroom homes in the area, right?
No, that's a starter home. You have a starter home.
Yeah, which is great for
25 years,
which is
I
great
lived
for
in a 2-bedroom house.
Yeah.
And it was a starter home, but we just never moved.
Yeah, but it's great for me. But there's I know so many people, well, just a handful of folks my age that have 2-3 kids, but wanting to move back to St. Genevieve, get into the school district, be closer to family, things like that, and they struggle to find a home that's adequate where they're not bunking 3 of their kids in one room. Also trying to find they don't necessarily need a big backyard as long as the other parks and stuff can play a role, but just looking for something that's adequate for that younger family to move back. Because I think so many of our discussions, when we talk about the fire department discussions, we're drawing from a limited population here of who's going to serve the fire department. Anybody can, right? But find a way to volunteer. But your demographics that are able and willing to run into a building are limited, because there is a large part of our population that is more the retirement age and things like that. So if you want to get the younger generations here to fill those roles, buy at the wineries and restaurants and entertainment activities and things like that, you gotta have a place for them to live and move down here.
But you also might have those people who are getting to be retirement age looking to downsize.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had that experience with people before. They need something smaller because the kids are gone, any other reason. So I just,
kind of a balance, I guess.
Yeah. I think there's really, just by looking at the numbers of what's available here, people just need something. And if we have more available, people would move into what was more appropriate for their family, and that would just open things up even more.
So you briefly talked about parks. I know it's a passion, but I mean, we have a park out M Road. We have a park down at Leahy. We have the big park. We have several little spot parks. And I know you are very versed on the needs of, or the wants, I guess. But anything that in the future I mean, Drew mentioned walking and biking trails. I mean, we don't have we don't own the creeks, obviously, here, so.
Yeah, I know I've talked with you briefly about increasing bicycle infrastructure around here. Did I talk to you about Valley Springs before?
I mean, we have talked
Yeah.
about there's the potential for a piece of land between multiple subdivisions.
Yeah.
But it also comes with its problems.
Drawbacks.
Sure.
Yeah, because just increasing bicycle infrastructure where there's safe places to ride, because it's going to take decades plus to get the sidewalk infrastructure throughout every subdivision adequate, right? So kids are riding, and like, just for example, last year sometime I was driving through St. Jude just checking things out, and family was out for a walk. There's no sidewalks in St. Jude. Family was out for a walk, a couple kids on bicycles. They were ahead of me, I saw them, so I was being cautious of them, but they had no idea I was there, but they had nowhere else to ride except for the street. And so it's just finding ways of just families being able to safely ride bikes. I mean, when I was a kid, we rode on the streets and stuff, but I also grew up in a subdivision that had sidewalks, wide streets, off-street parking, so you weren't competing in the roadway with parked cars and all that stuff. There was room to get over if you were riding in the street. If you had to pop on the sidewalk, you could. But St. Jude doesn't have that luxury. International subdivision doesn't really have that luxury. I mean, the streets are pretty wide over there, but everybody uses the on-street parking. Just because garages and driveways were not as forethought back then. But then even just connecting, like St. Jude's one that just sticks out because they're not connected to anything. If we can get a sidewalk going all the way down St. Mary's Road, then we can potentially connect St. Jude to that the lower entrance of St. Jude to St. Mary's Road. There's, with that one piece of land, I think there's a potential for like a 1 mile bike loop down there that could also potentially connect to St. Jude and the lower end of Valley Springs. And I can see a lot of benefit with that. The Quarry League fields or the VFW fields, I think they're referred to in here, that are down on 3rd Street. You know, we have the city owns that skate park area in the back corner, but the rest is all the lease from the VFW. I'd like to see like a pump track and bicycle playground go in that area, similar to what's in Pineville or Bentonville, Arkansas, Pineville, Missouri, or Bentonville, Arkansas. Just again, safe places for just different demographics to ride recreationally.
So how important, and if you have more, I apologize.
You're fine.
How important are, I mean, you guys particularly have all these competing priorities, streets, stormwater, cash reserves, I mean, insert whatever you want there. How important are sidewalks?
Very. I think we went through an age, right, where we're solely dependent on vehicles, and that's why we don't have the sidewalk infrastructure we do. But just in, like, knowing myself and how I'd like to be able to walk a little bit more comfortably from place to place. You know, I live in a spot that's convenient to walk to Country Mart if I need to go get groceries, or bike there, or bike downtown if I wanted to meet up. Just things like that. And but the disconnected sidewalks, you know, you walk in, then there is no sidewalk where the sidewalk ends, I guess. Right. There needs to be a continuation there, and then a lot of the sidewalk infrastructure that's existing is just so deteriorated, but it's this fight between what the city owns and whose responsibility it is, and that goes decades back, and you know, to try to acquire the the rights to put sidewalks on people's property. You know, you get one person that doesn't want to do it, it kind of ruins the whole purpose of the project, unfortunately. Even if it makes these other ones prettier, you're still putting people out into the street to walk or bike or things like that.
Imagine for a minute you didn't know about ice cream. No idea. Not a thing for you. But Ashley knows about ice cream. And you show up in a common meeting place and you say, hey, how important is ice cream? To Ashley, it's very important because she knows. You know, I think we've been conditioned here to not know about ice cream for so long that the responses you may get about sidewalks may be little to none because people just don't know. I mean, and I think that's unfortunate. I think if our comprehensive plan had a vehicle for making at least a plan where there are not sidewalks to put them, I think it would be a very good thing.
So we had a little bit of that with the RTCA through the Parks and National Park Service. So we've got somewhat of a plan drawn up on where to put them. It's mainly to connect the parks, but it also includes the national parks, but it also includes Pure Marquette all the way out to the community center. So there is something to put in the comprehensive plan that would start that conversation.
How does the city do sidewalks? Does the city pay for it all? Do you tax lien on the owner?
City hasn't enforced its code, that is, if your sidewalk is under or in disrepair, if you don't fix it within a certain amount of time, the city will do it and then put a lien on the property.
What about new sidewalk? Is it the same? Do the citizens have to come to the city to get the sidewalk? Will the city put it in on its own and then put the tax lien on the property? How do you guys?
At this point, we're not doing new, we're just trying to concentrate on existing.
Well, I mean, anybody who builds has to put the sidewalk.
Does that go for commercial as well? Or just residential?
But that hasn't always been the case, because do you know when that went into effect?
I don't off the top of
Okay,
my
I'm
head.
just curious.
So just curious, like out on Progress Parkway, for instance, like new businesses out there are supposed to put them in?
Yes, and that was part of that plan,
Okay.
so.
But
there's also, there is a little bit of give and take. So there's
Yeah.
sidewalk on the other side of the road there.
Well, because what I'm thinking about is, you know, if we were to do Parkwood and Bosler Drive extensions out there, and that's going to be a residential area, and these sidewalks, those people are going to want to walk to Braden's Playground or the community center or the water park, and if they got to cross the roads there, and then also if that other side gets developed, you know, how broken up is that walking path going to be? That it's not really going to be the walking path anymore, right? So if we have the forethought to make sure that those businesses that are going in on this side are adhering to the sidewalks, then eventually, as that gets developed, it'll all tie in together, right? Theoretically.
Theoretically.
Well, that's a requirement you're going to have to put on whoever develops that subdivision to make sure that they include sidewalks as part of their overall sketch plan and development plan.
So the biggest challenge in all of that, though, are existing homes where there's simply not space. Like if you come by my house and I say I want a sidewalk in front of my house, where is that going to go?
You can put it anywhere you want.
Well, there you go.
It's got to be, what, is it 40 or 42 inches wide?
Right.
Yeah,
So
so-
depending on specifications on what you
But-
build,
Right.
but if you're going to do something, I mean, it would be, you know, on that curve,
Yeah.
probably up against the curve that you have on your street.
So you're just, I don't think, that's a problem that's never going to go away then.
Yeah. Whereas, like, I know, like, some of the conversation in my neighborhood has been, I know a few people, including myself, that are interested in putting in a sidewalk in front of their house. For me, neither one of my neighbors on either side have a sidewalk. But there's still a little bit of benefit for me to put something there so that when there is street parking, my guests have somewhere to step out of their vehicle to,
Yeah.
right? Because, especially because my front yard's a bit of a hillside. But the issue, like in my neighborhood, is the streets are so deteriorated, like we don't really know like where the road ends to begin, right? Because there's been talks like the road's too wide, so if you come in and do a new street, are you gonna make it thinner? You know, to where our sidewalks are gonna be, you know,
20 feet away from the
20
street.
20
Yeah.
feet away from
Yeah.
the street. Of course, you know, that would still be paved, but it's crumbling pavement that you'd be responsible for repaving, and do you really need parking spaces there?
Yeah.
Things like there's just all that, and then also, you know, would the streets need to be milled down and paved because there is no base there? So are we just doing the base over? Are we rebuilding the street completely? You know, how high is that road gonna come in at? Because if I put a sidewalk in now and you add X amount of pavement,
Yeah.
we're into a situation where,
Yeah.
you know, it's level. And so that's been kind of the conversation in my neighborhood. I've had that conversation with a few different people. One couple's lived there for like 6-7 years, and they've been wanting to put in a sidewalk, but they just have no clue what's happening, or what the plan is, or when it'll happen. They don't want to do the work, and then the next year or two come through and do that. So it's a catch-22 dilemma.
I like the way you put it though, because it really is, a lot of people drive everywhere. I mean, we hear complaints about the sidewalk to nowhere on North Main, but it's like, I am on that sidewalk several times a week, and I am never the only one, even at 5:30 in the morning. So it's clear people want safe, wide, well-maintained sidewalks for recreation. And, I mean, my mom lives in your neighborhood. She likes to walk downtown so that then she can walk my dogs, you know, and there's just not a safe way for her to get there. And so it would be nice if she didn't have to cross, or if it was continuous.
Yeah. And to the conversation about that centers around the sidewalk to nowhere, I don't think it's the Main Street part of it. I think it's the part that continues after the gate that becomes the question of nowhere. Like, one, because it narrowed the street so much, and then also like that landing area is not fixed up. Like, what are you going to be able to see there, unless you're walking to the ferry?
But you
then,
still, I mean, there are
but-
so many people every night, UTVs going up to go to the ferry landing, cars, Jeeps, I mean, you name
Yeah.
it. People like to drive up that way. Some people like to
Yeah.
walk or bike right up that way.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I think the only issue with that was the fact that it continued after the gate.
after a
floodgate,
gap.
And then,
Yeah.
and then it had narrowed the street so much, and it's so off because of the bluff, the hillside there. It's always covered in mud, things like that. So from the conversations I've had, people aren't entirely, they're not mad about the sidewalk that goes from downtown to Pierre Marquette Park and ties in there. They wish it was at a different elevation, right? Because it's pretty flat in a lot of the areas on that road. But it's people questioning why we spent money on that section, and I don't think people realize that the city didn't
Spend tax money.
and I don't think the city led that either. That was
Yeah.
that initiative was led by a downtown organization at the time. And they did the grant writing and all that stuff to get the funding for that. So I think a lot of the conversation just gets people getting mad that the city spent money on a section of sidewalk that doesn't really serve because it's always covered in mud and stuff, but the city didn't pay for that.
But there are a lot of
Exactly.
people who use it. I mean, it is still in use, quite a bit.
Use
I
that
see
section
it.
of sidewalk,
Yeah.
or they get onto the road, because every time I've gone that way, I always end up having to be on the road.
No, I still see
There.
people using it. And,
Okay.
I mean, it's not covered in mud nearly as often as it used to
Okay.
be because they cleaned up the.
It's been a while, I just
area.
stopped going
Yeah.
up that way.
No, I mean, I ride my bike up there all the time
Yeah.
and we take the golf cart up there. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems to get a lot of use, but I mean, I just wish people would see the value in sidewalks, especially
Oh, yeah.
when we have a lot that are deteriorating
Mhm.
and it seems to me that the homeowners who have the deteriorating sidewalks don't even use them themselves. And that's where the problem is. But somebody like me, who walks in the morning, I walk on my lunch break, I walk in the evening, and I'm on these same sidewalks time after time, and I'm tripping over cracks, weeds, you name it. I'm the kind of person who notices and thinks it should be a priority. And then you see neighbors who are replacing their sidewalks or keeping up with the sidewalks. And then they've got a house next to them where it's deteriorating, and it's very frustrating for them. I hear from those people a lot.
There's only one way to control that under one entity, is for the city to own that.
Or us
piece
to
of
start
infrastructure.
enforcing our codes. We haven't been enforcing them.
No, I don't doubt that
And I think
that
we
would be
need to.
effective as well, but I mean, not nearly as effective, and I don't even know how that would work.
Yeah.
I don't know how you buy something if somebody doesn't want to sell it, but if we could own it,
Yeah.
we could control our destiny, we could make sure engineering spec was met, maintenance was done, things were maintained, but,
Well, some communities, they don't own the property, but the community goes in, puts the sidewalk in, and then charges the homeowners for it. And it's not even a, hey, do you want a sidewalk? It's, the city has decided we're putting sidewalks in, and we're gonna put the lien on your property for it. Because,
Do you know if those are in the existing right of way? Do you know anything like particular? Because I mean, you can do easements, they don't have to buy the property, you just get an easement. But I just wonder if that's in the right of way where they already have access.
I don't recall,
Okay. Yeah.
but,
So there's probably a state statute that backs that, where you have that right to do that, to make sure that it is a safe path for pedestrians.
because you do wind up, you can very quickly wind up with a situation where, house A wanted a sidewalk, B and C didn't, D and E did,
Yep.
and,
resulting in a more
We've-
aggressive, uneven walking path.
Yeah.
and it, so we've done sidewalk surveys, we just did we walked every single stretch of sidewalk in the city of Perryville, doing their ADA assessment of all of their sidewalks. And you wind up with this question of, well, this sidewalk right here, which is actually a segment, is 100% in compliance with the ADA standards. It's 48 inches wide, less than 2% cross slope. It's perfect. And it's 200 feet of an entire block. Is that, I don't even really consider that a sidewalk. That's a chunk of, because a sidewalk would imply a network, completely usable. And what we have here is 200 feet of paved concrete in people's front yards, but it doesn't actually connect to anything. So, but, then again, you've got to be careful about going in and putting stuff in that people don't want and making them pay for it, and then they get angry about it. But I do think there is a growing trend looking back to sidewalks, and there's the grant program out for Safe Streets for All. The walkable communities is a big push. So it's, with the comprehensive plan looking forward 20 years, if we look back 20 years, sidewalks maybe weren't all that big of a thing, but looking forward 20 years, is that going to be different now? Which is something else that, kind of how we got on this topic, but, the survey kind of helps show that. If there's a large amount of respondents who say, we need a walkable community, then we know that looking forward 20 years, that's probably something we need to take into account here.
I think there also, something I wrote down was, under weaknesses, public transportation, really lack of, you know, alternatives to automobile transportation. And bicycling to me is one of those alternatives. We need better routes for that. We don't really have any good options for someone who does not own a car. And that concerns me, especially with the lack of safe bike lanes, et cetera.
How does, in your mind, there's probably 10 different reasons why I shouldn't target you with this question, but in your mind, how does like an Uber or Lyft fill that need in town? Or are we so small that there's not a good opportunity?
I mean, I can see it being beneficial on a Friday, Saturday evening.
Yeah.
But
You know anybody who does that now?
My neighbor used to, my old neighbor, when I lived.
Was a driver?
Yeah,
Really?
it was really before Uber and Lyft got big, and she did it independently.
Yeah.
And I think it was a little busy for a while, and then there was an incident, and she stopped.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I think
it's a big risk.
I think it carries a lot of liability, in it. But I mean, I could see it being beneficial on weekends. Right, just the elephant in the room of drinking and driving, things like that. Like I feel like that's where that comes in at, because I mean, otherwise largely like if my friends are all meeting in town and we're gonna go to the same place, we carpool, and things like that. So, or if it's downtown, like a lot, we just walk sometimes if it's gonna be a later thing like that. But I think the biggest thing is just sidewalks or safe paths, not only for bicycles or walking, but accessibility, like wheelchair, power chair accessibility. I've noticed a gentleman that uses a power chair going from Progress Parkway to the grocery store and gas stations, things like that. I think about members of my own family that could benefit just from being able to have that independence of using a wheelchair or a mobility scooter or power chair to get from place to place, if driving's not an option for them. So
We have multiple individuals who live in the downtown area who walk to work or out in the commercial district.
So just all that connectivity to those main areas is key. At minimum from the entrance, every entrance of a subdivision to, you know, your key areas, your grocery stores, your convenience stores, things like that are going to be big. I know just conversations with friends and people I've met in St. Louis area. You know, St. Louis as a city is not very walkable. In the city, but what people are gravitating to are the neighborhoods, and the neighborhoods are becoming mini cities in themselves with their convenience stores, the grocery stores and things like that, just within their neighborhood, and that's been a real attraction for people in choosing where they want to live up in that area. What's walkable for them? Is it walkable to a park, especially a dog park? Is it walkable to somewhere where they can get their basic groceries and things like that? And so anytime you can apply that logic down here, it's just going to benefit us.
All right, good chat.
There's 25 minutes left though.
Did you not hear the part where we didn't have to stay for the whole 2 hours?
Well, they got to. What happens if somebody shows up in 15 minutes?
I need to go
We don't
make
have
sure
to.
the mayor made it home.
Yeah.
Y'all look out for each other. That's it.
Well, thanks,
Well,
Drew.
yeah, I appreciate the conversation and the input. And like I say, I don't live here. I know a little bit, but I rely on you guys and the community to tell me what's what and what you guys want to see. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That does exist in PDF form if you want to.
Yeah, I was just gonna
continue
have
reading
that. Tell Happy to get me a copy of that.
The whole thing, I'm not sure.
If you've got the whole thing, that's fine. I'd particularly be interested in, I made a note,
I should have a PDF.
J17 through J23.
I can send you the PDF.
Oh, yeah?
Do you just want the PDF?
Yeah, of the whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. He was just telling me he didn't think it existed, but
Oh, no, you
it's
sent
out
it,
there.
one of you sent it to us.
if you will, send it to Happy as well.
I sent it to the entire steering committee.
Yeah. Now I just gotta remember where it is.
If not, I can send it
I'm
to
just
you.
trying to get out of work, that's all I'm trying to
Please tell me those mics were on, please.
do. They are, oh, they are.
That was too good.
I think I downloaded it on my laptop.
Yeah, no rush for it, I mean, I'm not gonna go
Okay.
through it tonight.
Do you have it easily accessible?
I'll
You can
send it to you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no
Not to
rush.
pass the buck, but
No, no.
this thing is
It's,
dying and I have to stop using it.
Are
There's
you
something going on.
better with a digital version, or do you want to?
Digital's fine,
Okay.
save trees.
Well, I wouldn't print it. I'd just let you take the
Oh.
book.
Yeah, one thing I can't remember what time it is. But pretty much open, I'm just working on LPA recertification.
I was gonna come tomorrow,
That's
but
online.
I may
So I can-
not,
I can
that's all
start
right.
Save it all.
So now we have that early morning appointment that I think your wife told you about.
Yes, I'm sorry.
She was very understanding and let me leave her out
She
today.
teared up on the way home.
Oh, I made her cry. I felt bad. It was 'cause I was
It's
crying.
a hard thing. It's a very hard thing.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, but it is time. He has lived a good life and he's just,
I understand.
can't get himself off anymore.
That duty has fallen to me twice.
Oh, yeah, that's what she said. She was like, are you sure you want to go? You can go. And I'm like, I don't
So I
want to
don't know
go, but I
where it
need
is.
to go.
I
She's
don't
like,
want to
yeah, okay. I have an elderly dog. Yeah,
I figured.
sorry. Dave knows this dog well. Dave and his wife know this
Skeeter.
dog well. Yeah, so we're gonna take one last walk in the stroller tomorrow morning, I think, unless it's not doing anything tonight.
I don't know. It's not bringing
I
it.
have not noticed any more thunder. There was a bit this afternoon.
Yes, there was a really loud bang. I don't know, maybe about 3:30.
Yeah. So, but anyway, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
If you get much input, more people tomorrow, please let me know. I'd love to hear
Super,
people show up, and if not, we'll help get that questionnaire
Yes.
circulating, for sure.
Because I know there's lots more opinions out there.
Yeah,
Everyone's busy, so I'm hopeful that.
Yeah, it's,
And there's no way to avoid it.
yeah, we definitely do not
It's
just
gonna go- if
rely
anything,
on
it's gonna go
these.
perfectly
Yeah.
on angle to
Options.
the side.
And actually,
Like I said, this is normal, but input from the survey is usually
I don't own.
pretty good.
that.
You get the word out enough, people will
Most people don't.
participate.
Most roads are larger than what they're
we got a
paving.
few outlets to get the word out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right of
Thanks.
way, and in
Good
some
night.
places, easement even beyond that.
So you already own it, we'll put a sidewalk in.
Sure.
So when you talk
Unless
about
you're on my
the school,
street,
do you
in which
send like
case the
a
road is larger.
ask teachers to hand out
Yeah.
They put the
Yeah,
road
they can just,
larger
you know,
in an attempt
postcard
to
with a QR code or
make
whatever?
area for
Give it to
cars
each
to
kid,
park.
put it in the
And make
backpack.
it roomy enough
High
for
school
gas
or-
vehicles.
Yeah, just so long that everybody,
yeah, I mean, how, if the school's willing to do it, however they want to do it, or they could, you know, if they do a new weekly newsletter, you know, just,
Per usual.
I mean, with my kids, we don't really get a lot of stuff sent home now, it's just an email, but, you know, if the school is willing to send the email out, hey,
Might make a lot of sense in that area.
Sure.
well, I'll talk to Bailey Otto, she's our communications director, and see if
The
she
sidewalks are
has a preference or an idea.
streets
Yeah.
that water.
When the time comes.
I might be able to put it in the water,
Yeah.
Yeah, not understanding the cost of what that bill would
yeah, we'll
be.
get it,
except for the fact that it is not taking
We'll
out
get
of
it out there
sidewalk,
and-
replacing it, which we do automatically. It's part of it.
we'll run the copies that we're gonna
So like,
have here, and
we did some work down on
Couple
North
others.
4th Street.
we'll probably put some community
water
center and
Sure.
have them there as an
across
option.
sidewalks. So we replaced that panel. But
Do
we
them
are,
that way, but-
in some of the spots, besides the one we talked about.
Usually the
The three
bulk
houses
spots.
on Washington,
online.
We are replacing a large section of
Easier,
sidewalk.
quicker, yeah.
And we did have to cut a panel of it, but we're doing that because of the
And more
street,
people are,
not because of the water line. So that
10 years ago online,
the
it
streets,
was, I don't know, but nowadays,
which I found out was $24,000 more than what the bid was.
vast
because of
majority,
Oil prices.
I figure my parents can do one, so
Yeah.
most people. I got it figured out.
Well,
That's what you write into the contract, and I understand that you have based on what the current cost is, not what we.
So is Perryville wanting to add sidewalks or just make what they have ADA compliant, or is there a goal?
Yeah, everything, we can look at it.
Well-
It's just, where's that come from?
You know where this,
Um,
like, in your neighborhood, one of the
So-
primary sidewalks that needs to go in
Communities with
is
50 or
along
more
with the Pine Base
employees,
Drive there. People are
well,
walking there all the
50 or more
time.
employees have to have a
It's short
transition.
cut to,
Every
Tractor Supply,
community,
Mark that hole.
and if you want to park.
county, public
Yeah, and you
organization
got so many
has to
businesses
do
there
a
too.
self-assessment
It's not a super wide road for, if there's
for
parking
ADA
on it,
compliance.
especially both sides.
And the
In
self-assessment
and out of-
Believe me, I'm a fan,
Is
you just widen.
not just sidewalks, it's
Incorporate the
buildings,
sidewalks
it's
and leave that with
services.
the same
Yeah.
width, probably can't do that,
But the sidewalks is a
But
big
the road is fine.
chunk of
If there's
that.
if there's a sidewalk that can go in.
So they just, it was
you know, which
a
side that goes in
self-assessment.
I don't know if it matters if it's
Like I said,
residential or
every,
the commercial side or both.
we went
I think
out,
what you got across the street.
smart
so-
levels and tape
Yeah.
measures.
But, and it should intersect. It
Check
should
to make
intersect
sure,
with
you know,
Park-
I mean,
Yeah.
we did not
Well,
check
and
every
then
Section,
it would already tie
every,
into
yeah,
sidewalk.
expansion joint,
Right.
expansion joint.
Right.
You know, you can
But,
tie
you know,
into the
in a
sidewalk
block,
that
we
goes
would
on
get,
4th Street and Road.
Yeah.
if there was some kind of a clear non-compliance, like there was a break,
Well, the
Right,
idea
quarter
is
of an
that all
inch.
that would be connected.
GPS
When you're at
marked it,
4th Street,
took the
you'd be part of
measurements.
that.
Yeah, and
That's
then,
it, yeah.
and then you can just turn the corner and
If
go
there was
down
a
to,
horizontal object in
Tractor
it,
Supply,
you
Measure
know,
Mark, yeah, 'cause
GPS,
there's, I
that
guess,
power pole usually that's there in the
Yeah.
sidewalk, measured how wide it was at that point. But even if we're going down a sidewalk that there doesn't seem to be any issues,
Yeah.
we took the two endpoints at the
sometimes it's
intersections,
with the buddy, while
but then we
it's
probably got
walking or running.
two checks
But I've seen them by themselves.
just within
you know,
that
with
block
bags and
of
stuff, so they,
what is the cross slope thing.
you know, as much independence as.
Is it 48 inches wide here?
Uh,
So we
But
got,
there's also, there's an older guy.
It was over
that
4,000
drives a
points.
mobility scooter or whatever on
for their sidewalks.
highway to get to.
So, I mean, it was-
Like
Flagged
that.
up.
There was always issues there, but if you can.
They will have a very clear picture of,
To, and avoid
or
that
do
highway
have
traffic, people
a very
run
clear
through it.
picture of
I mean, those mobility scooters.
what is and
are
isn't
built quite
compliant.
well.
And what I always tell the
I know all
communities
sidewalks
is,
downtown
you
are
know,
redone.
your sidewalks
But at
are
some point,
compliant.
There was the understanding.
The fact that we map it doesn't magically
In your
mean
in your
that
core area.
it was compliant, and then we measured it, and it's not. It
Spread out.
it wasn't.
It's like, forget it.
But if you don't have the
They just
self-assessment,
keep concentrating on that. Most
Then
cities are that way. Your
somebody
downtown,
decides
old
to
part
sue
of
you,
town,
you don't
parts of
have-
town have sidewalks, have a sidewalk system. And
you don't have
there's
anything to fall
nothing
back on to
any
say,
extra extraneous subdivision.
the law doesn't require you to bring everything up to the standard immediately. It just requires you to have a plan, maybe 50-year plan.
Sure.
On how you're gonna get there. But if you haven't even done a self-assessment, then
Right.
you haven't taken that step to start fulfilling the requirements.
Gotcha.
But they're,
Positions.
the
not
only-
holding that enforcement.
Cape and Jackson
Like, when I
did
was
one
talking to my grandmother,
a couple of years
they know
ago,
the sidewalk rules and they keep-
through the
they take care of
NPO.
it and stuff. That's how I know about
And
sidewalk
then
rules.
City of Perryville,
But
I think is the
then
only
like
one,
some other places,
maybe Farmington?
it's just like,
But you're gonna get the
Oh,
pushback.
yeah, we've only got
You
3 or
gotta
4
send the letters
communities in
out.
our
Yeah,
area
sure.
that
You're
have
gonna start calling her all.
done
and
that stuff.
that's
any
fine.
of that.
I'll be like, to me,
So
that's part
it's-
of owning a home. Right, like,
It's a lot, competing priorities.
Yep.
Ordinance and we're able to.
Well,
yeah,
and like you said, talking to them, you know,
Issues,
you got
yeah.
you know,
all kinds of issues, and one
And
of
to me,
the,
especially like the existing.
part of the
sidewalks that are
competition
taken care of,
is
like, that's part of home
to budget.
ownership or
Yeah.
land ownership, like,
so,
you buy it as is and you agree.
Yeah,
I buy your
I'm
own
sure.
ordinance.
Well, I guess not everybody's fiscal year
Yeah, there's a
municipal
sidewalk
runs the same,
The
but
sidewalk
ours,
ordinance is probably in place for
it's
them.
October, so we're going through that right
So it's
now.
like, that's part of it to me. And
yeah.
But I'm just
Supposed
saying,
to be
No,
first
I'm-
reading.
yeah, this is what will happen.
It's
That's
something I'm
who-
willing to defend.
So,
You know,
and they're
Putting
deciding,
a fire
you know,
at City Hall.
they've got a street
At
plan.
some point, but it's easy.
Asking, you know, not asking, but it's developed around
Well, it's an easy argument to have. though.
$750,000 a year
It's completely unusable and
to
you
get
want
everything
to
done
have a discussion.
that needs done according to the assessment,
Maybe something I should
you know, over the next 10 or 15 years. And
find a way to
the city has
increase
historically
handicap
spent
accessibility in downtown.
$250,000. So how do we
Thinks about it.
lengthen the plan, or find the money, or find a middle ground? And then do we do sidewalks at the same time?
You have to worry about it.
And that's,
You identify it. You do not make
you know, there's
plan.
not a,
Then you're in violation.
I mean, there's quite a few grants out there for
Well, we can make a
sidewalks,
plan.
TAP, and then you've got some of
But
the
once you have it, you have to.
recreational
do it.
trails and land
Put it
water
on the
course
shelf.
commission. You can
Yeah,
find
we
some
know what our problems
We
are.
need to be thinking about it.
sidewalks. There's not a ton out there, but it's an option. But for roads, I mean, you're really looking at something like a DRA or a CDBG, but you have to tie jobs to it. And so if you're talking about, you know, neighborhood streets or something, you're out right there, and those are so competitive that
Disability is like.
Well, those CDBGs are tied to certain income levels too, aren't they?
oh yeah,
Right,
Yeah.
and so when a business idea of,
like,
with assistance is.
I know we did one,
Finding whatever strong
with the
patron
DRA
is in their
grant,
business to come help lift the wheelchair through this door, then
with
that door.
Cape County and the city of Jackson, they paved,
Or whatever.
it was a gravel road, and they paved a stretch of it because it was in their industrial park. They were able to tie it directly to jobs.
Or whatever, and come in that way, you know,
That's
maybe you can't put the ramp out front,
a
maybe
big
you have a rear entrance, like.
component
the
of
things
that, and if you can't meet it,
I would,
And there are ways to
and,
make
you know, with those
some
grants,
corrections.
the employers
Make
are
places accessible.
signing on,
Zero's
the
part of the
agreement saying,
problem.
we are going to hire this many people in the next
Step
5
in,
years once
that's
this
what
project's
employers
done.
do.
Yeah.
Or is it flat through there?
It's not easy.
flat through there.
We have,
yeah, you just
I have
step up
people
to get
calling-
through the first door, and then you're in.
with communities,
So what you have to
frequently
then
saying,
end up
hey,
doing is try, you need a 5
we've
foot
got this local
space.
street, and we need to do
That main door, well, then
something
you
with
have
it.
a concrete,
We
you
need
have
to
a furniture out front.
repave
But if
it,
there's,
That kind of-
or
but if there's
rebuild
a
it,
road
or
that
widen
goes
it,
from
whatever.
behind
What
the
money
sand
is out
bar,
there.
right, or if there's a shared, if there's a space,
It really just
owners of
isn't a lot.
I know,
Sandbar.
there's just so much out there right now
rolling on the
for
river.
water, sewer,
The
broadband,
oh
my gosh.
and-
But I feel like there are so many small cities that they just need to
have
have
a
a
gravel
road.
access
Mhm.
there.
You know, maybe they also do need to replace some clay
Well, I'm
pipe,
just saying-
whatever they're working on.
Yeah.
But that's a big,
Um,
handicap big.
But as was brought up here tonight, it's the roads that
One
get
of
the
the
most
things
attention.
that's
Sure,
much
yeah,
You could
because
take
that's
it
what
like-
everybody's
Yeah.
on, you
Hours
know,
becomes-
if the sewer pipe's falling apart, you don't
We've gotten
notice it
past that
until
point.
But if you
things
have
don't
handicap
flush
parking
anymore,
out there,
you know, but the road
then that's
you're on,
different.
That, and if it's,
Yeah.
you're not
Well,
going to the
and it gets,
kitchen, you're
you
not
know,
going
Yeah.
through.
Those sewer pipes and water pipes are obviously very important.
Yeah, shops, restaurants.
But those roads are driven on by, you know, not just city residents, but county residents, tourists, and so on and so forth. So they get lots of attention, and they don't get any of the, or if any at all, very little grant money.
There's a lot of walking, then you
So.
need a scooter, put the scooter put in there, things like that.
yeah, it's,
You know, so those are the conversations that I have myself, and then, like, I
No.
have cousins that
there's not a good answer for
come in town
roads.
and stuff, and, you know, wanna take their grandma out, who's wheelchair
No.
bound. They do a lot of assistance, but they can go out to eat
They've,
anywhere downtown.
in fact, Kathy did some
What a
research
shame.
here, prompted by the board, looking into Perryville's plan.
Can't visit, you know.
The one that was
Yeah,
adopted,
so,
I
I mean-
maybe 20
Yeah.
years ago,
Yeah.
there with the
Yeah, I mean,
assessment,
it's not,
street
but it's
assessments.
like, you think like, why aren't people coming down here?
But I
Downtown, it's
think
like,
that has to
they're only accessible
go
to
before,
anybody.
go before the voters, but I'm not positive on that either.
Oh,
Terminology there, but,
I agree.
assessing
you know what I mean? Like,
tax on it, you mean?
if families are traveling together and.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, one option for
different
transportation
accommodations
is
and you can't
the
accommodate.
Transportation Development District. community can
or they're
create, but
shooting
those
every day,
are
and
typically
you're missing
not,
out on an opportunity.
they don't usually cover an entire city, they cover
It's good.
a small section to divert the tax revenue,
Settlement.
or they add a tax
Oh, yeah.
to the revenue from it.
Arnold has one.
Where?
Arnold.
Oh.
So instead of dual.
Perryville's talked about one before.
Yeah.
Dagger.
No, it is, but I think
Yeah.
some people just.
I don't know, I don't work a lot with those actual
Because the area was grandfathered in, or like. it's a
districts, there may be a
requirement. They
couple
have
in our
some
area,
places that are like taking the initiative, like when Common Ground.
like a community
when
improvement
they had,
district or
like,
something.
They did what they needed to do to make sure. that
Yeah,
it was a successful thing.
that term has come up
That
also.
has its ramps and stuff in it.
But, it's, you know, it's
Things
another
like that,
tax.
so-
Yep. Oh, I know,
But
Perryville,
if you're not,
Man, we
if
spent
aren't
a year
listening to think
Yeah.
about it, or you're
Working.
not faced with,
working a
that
CID
reality.
down there
then
that
it's just easy to be. like,
ultimately just fell
not think
apart.
about it, and
There
then
was
you
a
wonder
lot of,
why you're not getting,
well, there was
uh,
some issues, I think, that
as much,
kind of came up and
traffic.
bit on the
and
tread, not really
stuff,
anything that
but,
they,
I mean, that is a big consideration for a number of families.
they just
when
didn't
they
see
go
it
on
coming.
a new
I think they,
just a weekend trip or whatever.
what they were proposing was a pretty good idea, and I think they
Big
just
issue
kind of
too for
figured,
people that live here and wanna engage in.
who would be
community
opposed to
and
this?
Sure.
And then they started talking to some of the businesses, and
corners of the
well,
code.
the
so that we
businesses were
can,
opposed to it.
Sure.
enforce.
Yeah, it went on for a while, and
Find
it was
ways
ultimately,
to
this is a tax.
that.
I'm
Sure.
going with the stake out on the sidewalk location.
Yep.
You did.
I do too. I do
I mean,
too.
you own that property, so I'll expect you over there.
Nobody wants to pay
I
more,
don't
and I
have,
don't
so I don't
blame
have to
them.
do anything.
But just gotta find that happy balance of
We seem to be in an impasse.
what do we need,
Yeah, I'll call you
to
tomorrow.
get what we want.
Thank those guys for me.
See y'all.
Good night. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
I'm just turning this one off, because there's nobody down here.
That's all right.
Just leave them out for the morning.
Yep. Drew asked me if there was, I said, I don't think there's anything, you don't have a meeting or anything in the morning, do you?
No. This is it, but, yeah.
All right, well, I got tomorrow's sign-in sheets over here, and
Okay.
so, I mean, I can move this stuff over to this table if you want me to at least clear it off of here.
No, I don't think, well, you know, we got a crowd of people down there when we do that. Well, I mean, technically, we ought to set that table up over here so they sign in as they walk in. But damn, that requires physical activity.
Yeah.
That's not right.
Well, then I will, for what it's worth, take this sign-in sheet with me
Okay.
and scan it in and all. But I'll leave everything else. And we'll do it again at 10 o'clock.
Shutting it down.